Okay, I would like to call the meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
Same here.
Thanks, 14 February. For the record, does the commission, the members of the commission, if they would introduce themselves?
Kevin Mullen.
Tony Masick.
Lucy Thayer?
Erica Berner. Okay. Any additions, deletions on the agenda items? If not, may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Review and approval of the minutes for the January meeting, which are attached to your packet.
I got a chuckle. Down at the bottom of the first page, Erica Berner replied that he did not.
Where are you?
All the way down, last paragraph, first page, in the section.
Third to last line.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry.
On that same page, the zoning administrator's report, it says, I think the last digit should be 2023.
Yep.
Correct. Thank you.
And same thing in the next sentence.
Right, yes.
2 permits issued in 2023.
Oh, no, those were for,
Oh,
No,
were
no,
those,
no.
were
That
those
was for
2022?
2022.
Oh, okay, sorry.
and then, on the next page, there's a, looks like a stray, a change 9, maybe that's, number 9 on this here. I'm not sure. It's, the third line down. Kevin Mullen asked about
Change 9.
suggested change 9.
Yeah, change 9 is the matrix.
All right, okay. And then the only other thing I think, isn't it Shannon Pitlick? Isn't there a T in there, or is that, do I have that wrong?
I'm not really sure.
You're not sure?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I believe you're right. If so, I will correct that.
So there's two places where her
Okay.
name appears.
All right. Yeah, I see it. I'll check that spelling before I do the final draft.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So with those changes,
I'll move to accept them as amended.
okay,
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's PYTLIK.
Okay, I will get it changed. Thank you. Okay, zoning administrator report so far this year. As of Monday, I have issued 6 permits, which is pretty good,
Yeah.
you know. And one is a new house already, so actually 2 of them are, sorry. So we've already got 2 permits for new housing, which is not bad at the beginning of the year.
No.
And we also have a DRB meeting. It looks like it's going to be the 9th of March. Because one of the new houses, he came in yesterday and he said, 30 feet within the setback, I need a variance. So we did the paperwork, it went out, and I believe the DRB agreed to meet on the 9th of March. So I don't anticipate it's going to be a problem, but I will get all that paperwork out because it was just approved this afternoon. So that's the ZA report right now. Okay. Continuing discussion of the RRPC and suggested revisions. I sent you out copies. I don't know if you all have copies of Act 24. I have one extra copy if you need it.
Wow.
And I made all of the changes. I believe I made all of the changes that we discussed. And they're in red if you had a color
See.
printer. So, and it did go to a few extra pages. As we discussed, where it said the acts, I went through and put through the Vermont Planning and Development Act 24 VSA, Chapter 117, so that's throughout the whole document. That was one of the changes. Then on page 9, we added scenic and natural beauty and utilization of renewable energy resources. And I wasn't sure number 3 on that one. That's on page 9. I'm not sure if that's exactly the wording that we decided on.
Yeah, I think the distinction was, you shouldn't call it alternative energy.
No, it's renewable now.
Yes.
Yeah, it was scenic and natural beauty of the area.
Of the area, okay, thank you. And I will make that correction. Okay. And, on page 10, section 414, Ed had, basically scratched out in effect July 1st, 2014, which I just lined through so you can see the changes. And again, you can see where in red the act is now all the way out on 2 different places on that page. On page 12, number 2, it is the required agricultural practices, better known as RAPS. So that's now been corrected. And on page 14, it's a blank page for some strange reason, so obviously with a draft, I'll find out what's going on. Must be a page break. Page 15, section 427 is now renewable instead of alternative. Okay. And on page 17 is the table and the draft that we discussed changing administrative permit AP. And I believe that's the language we agreed upon. Uses and structures are permissible upon issuance of a zoning permit by the zoning administrator. And then Development Review Board, in parentheses DRB, uses and structures are permissible upon issuance of a zoning permit after conditional use review. A site plan review has been, it should be review, and a site plan review has been completed by the Development Review Board. Is that what we agreed upon?
Yeah.
I think so, but just.
I think so. I still am not sure about this table quite, but I said I would look at it and I didn't do that.
Okay,
So-
well, I looked at the table briefly,
Yeah.
and if you notice on 1 and 2, the first 2 where we have family dwelling single, and 2 we have family dwelling, you notice I
Yeah.
scrolled through it. Because I noticed as we went down on page 118, we have multiple family dwelling, more than 2 families or units, so we've got it defined 2 different ways. I don't know if you want to leave it in 2 different ways or if you just want to take one out. It's up to the board, however they want to do it.
I would like to leave in a 2-family dwelling, just so that people that are beyond that understand that they come under the multiple family.
Okay. So you want to leave both of them in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Alrighty, so, all right. We will. Family stays in, okay. Yeah, I tried to do a matrix of where we have descriptions on each of the zones and what's in and what's not. And that's where the discrepancy that I could that I saw came through, because one says two-family and then the other one says multiple. So I think that's where it comes from. Okay. But I did replace then with permit with AP, although it kind of sounds like the A and P. And as was suggested, it's a standalone, 3 pages. So somebody can just make a copy of that without anything else, if they so choose. And then on page 21, as with all of the zoning, where it says the following uses are permitted, and then we agreed to add, and with administrative permit issued by zoning administrator. And then the other, number 2, the following uses are conditional use with development review board and site plan approval. So people will hopefully understand that one can be issued fairly fast, and the other one they have to go through a development review board. And I just copied and pasted those sentences straight through. And they're still standalones. I made sure of that. And then on page 28 is still the spelling out of the act. Same thing on page 29, the spelling out of the act as it is. And then, I think when we went into definitions, there weren't any changes that I saw between that and the definitions. And in definitions, there, on page 44, where we have family, using the definition that I think we agreed on, I did family, comma, single dwelling. A single family housing dwelling, family home, and in parentheses, dwelling is a freestanding structure that shares no common walls with another residence. And then family, comma, multi-family homes contain separate residential units within a single structure. Apartment buildings, condominium complexes, and duplexes are all considered multifamily homes. That was, I believe, the definition that we agreed on.
Agreed.
Okay. So, getting away from the housing unit and all that other stuff. And I do believe those are all the changes. So, any comments, discussion outside of the typos that I caught myself? Sorry.
Not right away, not right now.
Right? So shall we, what is the board's pleasure? Shall we continue with, how do you want to proceed now? We've made the changes that Ed suggested, although, we're still waiting for the map and the maps. The RRPC, Ethan is, still getting accustomed to the job. So I would personally recommend that we wait until the maps come and then we add this into it, but, I don't know.
I agree with that. I also want to get folks some information on PUDs so that they can familiarize what they are and if they are relevant at all to our town. So I will do that still.
Okay.
So hopefully in advance of next meeting.
Okay. So we'll just leave it as it is right now, except for the typographical errors that I noticed.
I was wondering if what we've done with what we settled on with regard to the, placement of trees around, renewable energy sites. Have we settled that now?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
Not that I'm bringing it up, I just wasn't clear in my mind.
No, we haven't. I think, looking back at the minutes, I was supposed to go to look at the Castleton one, and I have to apologize, I just ran out of time this month, so.
Kevin, your comment is in regard to not having more restrictive language for renewable versus other commercial?
No, my comment was more in regard to whether or not we're having deciduous along with conifers, or the placement of same, or et cetera. You know, I thought Tony did a really nice job. I think you were involved in that too, putting that together, and I just wondered if we had settled on it.
Oh, yeah, we did.
That we did, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was
yeah.
concerned about.
Yeah.
Because I thought we had.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was just, I believe last month, in one of the changes, Ed suggested that you can't make one
More
more
restrictive.
than the other.
Right.
Right.
But I thought our language sort of covered that.
I thought so too.
These regulations apply to energy generation facilities 15 kW and greater, and commercial developments that propose storage of equipment, materials, and/or other products that are visible from the roadway or a neighbor if in a residential zoning district.
Right. I don't see anything wrong with that myself.
And it's in a separate section than the renewable energy.
Yeah. So we're just gonna leave that alone.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, I'm asking.
No,
Oh.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right, any other discussion?
Nope.
What, I guess, what have we decided to do with short-term rentals, or is that the public comment?
Short-term rentals, we just have the one thing in here.
What section is that, Erica? Oh,
It's-
it's 429.
429 on page 15, I believe, which basically, I think, hold on. Except where permitted, require a conditional use permit upon approval by the Development Review Board. Short-term rentals are subject to Vermont statutes pertaining to short-term rentals.
All right, I'm on page 15 and I'm not seeing.
It's on page 16, I'm sorry.
Okay.
15 is a blank page for some reason, I'm sorry.
Not on mine.
Oh,
I have the blank page elsewhere.
oh, okay.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I ran out of ink and had to change the
Yep.
toner at some point tonight. So,
Well, is that going to satisfy the public comments that we got by email?
I think that we also need to read those out because they are public comment, but we haven't put them on the record.
Well, they're kind of extensive, and they refer
They are.
to I mean,
I don't think there's a limit though on what, we don't have a public comment needs to be a public comment. I can't just live in our emails.
well, it kind of, it was,
I mean, if people are writing to us and have something to say, they took the time to write to us, I
right.
think. So we should, no, I know you're not discrediting what they're saying. I just think that it's important though to, like, the people who are watching, because we know folks watch this because they're interested. I think they have a right to know what it is we're referring to.
Right.
okay. Actually, I printed them out last,
What?
thought I had them out. And they will get included in the minutes.
I
So,
don't think these are too long to read. I'm happy to do it. I mean, that's what we're here for. I mean,
yeah, that's fine. Here are the general comments about the draft zoning. Short-term rentals, the way this was thrown in is not sufficient to right now.
could you preface this by whom the comment is from?
Yeah, it's from Shannon
Pitlick?
Pitlick, sorry. And she is also referring to, I believe she's referring to a draft before this, but she wants a copy of the zoning review comments from the RPC, which is online. And they were put online, her general comments about the draft zoning.
Erica, I'm happy to like read this. I think that it's
No, I
like,
can do it.
okay. I think we should literally read it.
Okay, here are my
Okay.
general comments about the draft zoning. Short-term rental, this was thrown in, is not sufficient to regulate the use of short-term rentals. There is the Vermont Supreme Court case that states that regulating a use that is a permitted use in a district based on a rental use is not legal. Here is that link, and she supplied us with the link. I did not follow the link yet. Basically, renting is not a change of use unless the use is specifically defined and listed in each of the zoning districts in which you plan to regulate it. The STR needs to be defined as a specific amount of time of rental and listed in the table and identified as permitted or conditional for each zoning district. The way you added STR does not comply with existing case law and will not be upheld. You should also take out the reference to Airbnb, as that is a specific business that people use but is not a definition of a use and can be gone tomorrow. I sent this before, but I'm sending it again because it has a lot of great information on how to properly regulate a STR. Okay, and that was omitted from that. I also noticed that in the October minutes it stated E. Bernier again explained that without an operating permit for a short-term rental, the owner would not have insurance coverage should anything go wrong. And she continues on, I would love to know where you got that information. That's simply not accurate. You can have insurance coverage for a short-term rental without a zoning permit. And what is an operating permit anyway? Most people operating short-term rentals do not have a zoning permit because most communities do not regulate them. Some insurance companies will require a fire safety permit from the state, but none require a zoning permit. This issue was also in the September minutes and also misstated. Insurance won't cover a structure if it is operating without a permit. This is not true of a zoning permit. This may be true of a safety fire permit, but that is not the concern of the PC since this is a state permit. Actually, where I got that from was talking to my insurance agent, who basically said if the town didn't give you a permit to operate, it's considered a business, and if you don't have a permit to operate a business, your homeowners won't cover it. And so that's where I got it from. Industrial zoning, I also noticed that nothing has changed with the industrial zone, and that we still have whole neighborhoods zoned industrial, and their homes are not permitted uses in that zone. There is no reason to have a whole neighborhood zoned industrial where the houses have been there for a long time and are non-conforming uses in a residential neighborhood. It defies logic. If the board remembers, several years ago, we put out a notice in the town newsletter for 3 months, and the select board was very aware of it. They gave us permission to do that, that if anybody wanted to change their zoning, that was the time to do it, and we got no comments, and we got no requests to change any of the zoning. The area that Shannon is in and everything is a zoning district and has been for 50 years.
I do have to say, I noticed this on the last DRB application. It doesn't make sense that the River Street neighborhood is in the industrial district. That also didn't make sense to me. So I think that's a good point, because while nobody may have come forward, that doesn't mean it's not our responsibility to change something that maybe doesn't make sense.
I'm not arguing that, but I am saying that right now it is an industrial, and it would have to be rezoned, which means that my understanding on rezoning, and quite frankly, I've asked and people go, oh, wow, we haven't rezoned in years. Not in this town and others. It would require all the inhabitants of that area to be notified, to come forth, and it's not something that we can just decide, is
Right.
what I'm saying. It has
We
to be
can propose
everybody.
it.
We can propose it, absolutely.
Anyone can propose it.
Anyone can propose it.
Yes, but not everyone is on the board, right? We're the body that looks at that stuff, so that's why it's kind of a little bit different than just, do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean, we're doing all this rewrite, so it kind of seems like a good opportunity to try and maybe make some, because I think the whole point of this rewrite is that we're trying to make things more logical. So I think that's a good point. However, I don't want to get into the middle of the comment, so we should probably finish this public
Yeah.
comment.
The only thing that I haven't been able to check is, and I don't know the town, I'd have to check with Julie, is if in some places they tax differently in different zones, and that may or may not apply here. I don't know. Julie would be the one to, and the lister would be the ones. So that's something else. But it really was interesting to talk to other people, and they said, we haven't rezoned in 50 years, and we have no idea how to do it. It would be Vermont statutes, obviously, so it can be done, but I'll find the process. Okay, continuing on, agriculture, I noticed that you added in farm animals in one district, but that is not defined. For this to mean anything, it would need to be defined in line 203, and the draft still has acceptable agricultural practices. It has been required agricultural practices for many years. That's been changed.
All right, I think we did, since then, define farm animals.
I think we have. I don't think we've done it. I don't think we've done it in the definitions.
Okay.
We can. Again, it's just paper. And that would be according to the RAPs. But I do believe we have in the sense of, no, it's not in here, in the sense of what the RAPs consider. We haven't defined it, but we have referred to this place where it is defined, I believe.
Maybe farm animal then just says see RAP definition, like, or see state RAP or something like that.
Okay. And give the URL for it, so somebody can, instead of having to look it up, can just go right to it. Okay. General comments, the Wallingford Town Plan is supposed to outline community goals and needs. It is a document that is supposed to guide the revisions to land use regs. The first goal of the town plan, page 5, it is intended that the Wallingford Town Plan be implemented and used as a basis for regulation. The plan serves as a foundation and guide for the provision of zoning regulations, subdivisions, regulations, impact fees, restrictions, shoreland bylaws, and flood hazardous bylaws. The town plan does not mention either short-term rentals or agricultural, nor am I aware of either being identified as priorities in a questionnaire. It seems that these two topics appear on your agenda. We have no idea if the community is interested or supportive of regulating them. Yet the PC continues to spend a tremendous amount of time on them without gauging community support. So my question is, why is the Planning Commission working on these issues? Agriculture is already regulated by the state, and short-term rentals will be shortly. It takes a lot more sense for the state regulation to regulate STR, short-term rentals, in a consistent way statewide, rather than insert a vague sentence into our local zoning regulations that is not consistent with case law and likely won't hold up in court. Take care, and Shannon.
And we received those on January 10th of 2020.
Yes, 6:49 in the evening. And a copy of this will be in the minutes for anyone to read. One of the things I will say about the regulation of short-term rentals was because when the town plan was being developed, Airbnbs were really not that popular. That was way before COVID when short-term rentals came. And if I recall correctly, over the last few years, we've had more and more Airbnbs, short-term rentals, if you will, Airbnbs being part of short-term rentals in the area. And I think that's one of the reasons why the focus. We don't have it. A lot of towns are grappling with it, not just us, by the way, because you have people from in and out of state, second, third homes, buying up houses in residential areas and turning them into short-term rentals. So that is one of the hotter topics in some communities. Not all, obviously.
And I just want to mention that part of the reason we had sent out and we were seeking feedback from people that might want to have their area rezoned, because we didn't want to assume that they wanted it just residential. Maybe they wanted light industrial, which includes housing, you know what I mean? And we didn't get any feedback as this is the way to go, you know? And all I imagined was we go through the whole process of whipping that up and working it down, and then somebody says, hey, I didn't want residential, I wanted this, you know? So that's why we were seeking some feedback from the public. Yeah, which we got none.
So,
Regarding Ms. Pitlick's comments, I did read or heavily skimmed the case, Tour versus Tour Living Trust case, and the gist, what I got from that was these people had a large house, and they were from out of state, and they were there some of the time, and they rented it out some of the time and gave their relatives use of it some of the time. People objected, and the reason why the state ruled against them essentially was because there was no short-term rental bylaws in that town. There was just nothing there, and part of the case revolved around, well, it's a commercial use, and you know, the neighbor said this is a commercial operation, but then the zoning bylaws said that you could have sort of, you know, a home office or something there, a commercial use in that zone. So the court couldn't separate those two and said, you know, we don't find anything in the bylaws that prohibits this. And I think they said something that the town could clearly prohibit the appellate's use, in other words, short-term rentals, but we could not read the current bylaws as having done so. So she states that a town can't do it, but the case actually says that they can, and that it is legal to do it if the town zones it that way. And there's a whole bunch, and the other thing that she refers to is the VTSTRA Municipal Policy Guide, Squarespace, that was put together by VRBO and Airbnb and some other people, and it really, they were talking about you should have a community short-term rental hotline, perhaps. That would be a good idea. I mean, these are all just suggestions.
Or a registry.
And the other thing says you should have a manager, or the owner should be geographically in the area and 24/7 on call for any problems. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that this, you know, thing that is put together by VRBO, et cetera, that just clearly wouldn't apply to this town very easily. So I think that we can and probably should have some sort of bylaws regulating short-term rentals, and if we do, then it would appear that, you know, having done so, that, you know, they could be deemed legal. At least that's what I got from reading that case.
But to Shannon's point, we don't have current regulations on the book, and that's where the problem is. So we're
Right.
we're proposing them. And
I
Erica,
agree.
correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that we are regulating them the way we are is because they're not a listed use and therefore understood to be a conditional use.
Correct.
Even though we don't define short-term rentals, it is a for-profit operation. So our reading thus far has been that since it is not a stated approved use, it falls under conditional use. And that's why it requires approval. But there are some districts in which you don't need to go to the DRB. Is that correct?
Yes, well, yes and no. The neighborhood commercial district is the only one that allows hotels. And so, that's why an Airbnb in the commercial area still needs to have a permit. It's permitted. It doesn't need DRB approval. Residential areas, there's no mention of it in a residential area. That would need a approval. The only reason why the Munson House had to go before the DRB in the commercial district is because it was listed as a bed and breakfast, and it was a change of ownership at the same time. And quite frankly, the two owners came up after the meeting and said that was the easiest DRB meeting they have gone through. They have a house in Springfield, they have a house in Grafton, and I believe they said in Springfield, when they went before the Development Review Board, they were there for almost 2 hours. And so they said no, that they felt that they were treated very fairly. And of course, the idea of having a Development Review Board is to allow the neighbors a say-so. To voice, as you all know, to come in and voice any objections, because otherwise, how would you know? And that's really the whole purpose, is to give people an an opportunity to come in and voice. This goes back to a case several years ago on the DRB of a property owner up on West Hill that was running an Airbnb. And there are covenants in West Hill Road that the people on the road specifically said it's against the covenants of the homeowners association. The homeowners association covenants do not have to be upheld by any municipality. So by our rules, she followed everything. She did what she was supposed to. She got the permit to operate and I believe she was an Airbnb to operate it. The neighbors complained, and I used to have one of the neighbors, because they would stop at his house looking for the Airbnb, and he was a little put out, especially at 10 o'clock at night, you know. So that is primarily the reason why DRBs are there, is to allow the neighbors a voice.
Well, that's why we've been, that explains why the town has handled the applications for short-term rentals the way that it has.
Yes.
Even though there's no defined use currently.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
I think, I understand what Shannon's saying, but I think that we have tried, the town has tried to handle it in a fair and equitable way. So I think that makes sense. But I also think if the state could come up with some regulations for us to refer to, that would be really nice as a layperson's, board.
There's a lot of people that are saying to the state, you need to come up with something, because the state is saying yes. Excuse me. Again, I'm only using Airbnb as a sample, but I do know, according to the owners of the Munson House, that the state collects, Airbnb collects the meals and taxes through Airbnb, not from the owners. And so the state is also looking to regulate, because according to some people in the state's losing money. If you have a private, without going through a commercial entity, you're slipping underneath the wire, if you will. and the state's not collecting its fair share in taxes. Airbnb, on the other hand, and other commercial entities collect the taxes and send it to the state in your name.
Yeah.
So there's already a little bit of a regulation there, but
Yeah, I also agree, Tony, with what you said about the VTSRTA municipal guide, policy guide. I reviewed that as well, and I appreciate their guidance, but it is a .org site, but it
Right.
did appear to be like a nonprofit lobbyist type of group. There appeared to be more of a lobbying effort than,
Oh, yeah.
and it was not a state. They weren't state guidelines, which is what we're looking for.
Right.
right.
So that's why I wasn't comfortable necessarily with adopting any of those policies.
Some of them made sense,
Right,
but
the registry. I thought, I mean, also if we could have like an annual registration with the town, and maybe there's a small fee associated with that to offset the cost of staff, maintaining that. I thought that seemed like a reasonable sort of a thing, but I think we should probably think about those a little more holistically.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things. Now, the one thing I think that the state is trying to do, and of course, I've asked the RRPC, Ed over there who works with us, is there anything going through the state legislature? And I get a weekly update on bills, and I haven't really seen anything going through yet. But there is a concerted effort, because the other thing is, for example, not to bring up the sore subject of insurance, but there have been cases where Airbnbs did not have the proper insurance, and people have been hurt, and all of a sudden the homeowner liability didn't cover it. So that's also one of the things I think the state is looking into, is to ensure you have that, ensure that you have the proper fire apparatus. I mean, with homes, if you're renovating a new home or you're putting in a new home, you're supposed to have fire smoke detectors and everything in every room, and they're supposed to be hardwired, and mine go off at 2:00 in the morning because the batteries are going off, and great to wake up and everything. But I think they're really looking, and this is, I guess, a personal opinion, but based on what I'm reading, is they're really looking to start regulating Airbnbs in a safer manner. Fire marshals, for example. I mean, how many people can you have in a house that has 3 bedrooms? We don't have that. We don't have that problem in Wallingford. The Airbnbs that are here are, most of them are local. If not, they're very carefully watched, or they have a local manager. And they're very carefully watched. I've seriously have not had any complaints on anybody on noise levels or anything, and I'm quite sure that I would. So that's all I can tell you right now.
I guess the last point to Shannon's note is with this kind of sentence, without gauging community support. I mean, I know I've implored at previous meetings that folks that are watching, they should, we can't get community support if you don't engage, so we can't gauge something that's not being put out there. I think we've read this comment. I also have another, I believe this is intended to be a public comment because it's addressed to members of the Planning Commission, from Lisa Williams, addressed to myself and Kevin, and it was also sent to the select board. So I think it'd be appropriate to read that, but just to Shannon's point, I guess I would just ask for folks to come and engage, and then or offer if there's specific suggestions of how we could better engage the community.
Sure.
I think we would all be, I'm certainly willing to hear what those are, because I think it is important that we're working as part of the community and for the community. So I don't think anybody's intent in the board is to unilaterally decide anything. So
No, well, at the end of the day, we're all residents.
exactly. So I appreciate that sentiment, and I guess I just hope that folks will engage with us as well. So on January 31st, I got an email, like I said, from Lisa Williams, and Kevin got this as well. It was, and it's very short. Can I read it?
Sure, but can I have a hard copy of it?
Yes,
So
I will. I realize that you're not on here, so I will copy it to you. It's called, titled Farm Determination. It's from Lisa Williams. To members of the Planning Commission, attached is the letter that was just sent to the select board, as Shannon Pitlick and others have brought up in meetings. Zoning bylaws and ordinances do not apply to farms regulated by RAPs, and under the jurisdiction of the Department of Agriculture. More information about RAPs can be found online at the VT Department of Agriculture site, but below is an attachment to a synopsis as well as our farm determination letter, signed Lisa and Mark Williams. I'll send that to you, and it was also sent to the select board, but since we were reading public comments, I wanted to get that one in there as well.
Okay.
And if folks in the public are listening, they should, what's the best way to make a public comment to the planning commission by written,
Send a copy to the zoning. Just zoning at Wallingford VT.com.
All right, I just forwarded that to you, Erica.
Right, and anything that goes to my Gmail, is on anything like this is going straight over to the zoning. So, okay. Any other? Okay. So I think we did pretty good from the comments from the public. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 14th of March, 3 days before St. Patrick's Day, so we should be ready for that. Unless there's any other comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Kevin?
I'll second it.
Tony? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we are adjourned at 7:51 PM.